A lot of people are not interested in the complexities of the politics of cannabis. And for them, the thing that they're interested in is the effect that the changes of the laws would have on them. How is it going to affect you as the end user? How is it going to affect you as a grower if marijuana is decriminalized, legalized, or re-legalized? Welcome to iBelieve TV, the show that takes the mystery out of the effects and techniques the media and government use to keep you in the dark. My name is Justin Ballett, and today I'm going to be speaking to you about the cost of cannabis. Whenever a country decriminalizes marijuana, decriminalization means that the country still says that marijuana is bad, it's harmful, it's disgusting, it's evil. It's just that they're going to stop prosecuting people, certain people, if they are found in possession of marijuana, and sometimes they even allow you to grow a few plants. But because the government doesn't want to appear to be soft on drugs, they don't want people to accuse them of being supporters of drugs, because that's how they classify marijuana, even though it's a plant. They have to at the same time come out with mandatory minimums. So what decriminalization means is that if you are caught with 5 grams of marijuana, that's fine. You'll be allowed to have 5 grams. If you are caught with 5 plants, that's fine. You'll be allowed. However, if you are caught with 6 grams or 6 plants, or if you try and sell the marijuana, then you will automatically have a mandatory minimum sentence put upon you. Usually, it's between 10 and 20 years. These are mandatory minimum sentences. They're unconstitutional, but of course that doesn't stop the government. The government is there to ensure that the public perceive that they are still being tough on drugs and tough on crime. And so the cost in terms of marijuana, how much will it cost? Well, if today the marijuana that you're paying for costs 100 Rand, whether it's 100 Rand a gram or 100 Rand for a bankie, the price of the marijuana when it is decriminalized goes up threefold. So it will cost you 300 Rand for the same amount of marijuana that you are today paying 100 Rand for. Because decriminalization, because of the mandatory minimums that are imposed if you are caught, the risk in terms of for the growers and the distributors is much greater, and therefore the price goes up accordingly. We saw the same thing happen in Amsterdam, where you can get marijuana prescribed to you from the government for around about €4 a gram, and at the coffee shops it's €12 a gram. That's what happens when you decriminalize. The price goes up by 3 times. What about legalization? Well, with legalization, initially the price doesn't go up that much. The way in which legalization works is that the government will come out and they'll say, oh, you have to pay a permit. And initially the permit will only cost 20 Rand. It'll be cheap. And everybody will rush forward and pay this 20 Rand to get this license, this permit. And they'll be so happy and so excited. 20 Rand, is that all? I've got the permit. But of course, as soon as you pay for a permit, permit means permission, and that means it's not a human right. It means that the government is now in control. They permit something, they give you permission, which means they can take it away or they can change the requirements for that permission, which they always do. In the old South Africa, gambling was completely banned, it was completely illegal. When the new South Africa came along, because in the old South Africa, in the homelands, you were allowed to gamble, they were allowed to have casinos. When the homelands were incorporated back into South Africa, all of a sudden the gambling laws fell away. They no longer applied anymore, because you can't say, oh, in this part of South Africa you can gamble, but in this part you can't. So thousands of little gambling establishments opened up, and many people were employed. And then the government stepped in and said, no, we have to regulate it. And of course today, it's been regulated to such an extent that only the biggest, hugest corporate branded casinos are the only ones who are able to pay for the regulation. They regulated the casino industry so much that no small casinos exist. Not one exists. And of course, if you allow the government to regulate marijuana, they will do the same thing. And so initially you pay 20 Rand. Now you've agreed that it's a permit issue and the government can permit it however they want. The government can control it however they want. So on day 1 it's 20 Rand. By the next year you'll have to go and pay 200 Rand just to get permission to be able to smoke marijuana. If you want to grow the marijuana, you're going to have to start paying a tax per plant. You'll have to buy a tag which you'll have to attach to the stem of your plant, and the stem tag will cost you maybe 100 or 200 rand a plant. If you're growing indoors, they charge you by the watt. So for every watt of electricity that you use, if you've got a 400 watt metal halide and a 400 watt high pressure sodium light, you have to pay a tax per watt. That's 800 watts. And that means if they charge you 1 rand a watt, that's 800 rand. But of course they're going to put that up and up and up and up. So eventually it's going to be 10 rand a watt. That's 8,000 just to have 2 little lights. And this is what they keep doing. So initially the price, if marijuana is legalized, it won't go up too much. But you are going to be paying as an end user for your license to be able to purchase marijuana. You're going to be paying for your medical tests. You're going to have a whole lot of other restrictions placed upon you. And believe me, the day that you have an accident, the government's going to come and ban you from buying marijuana again. If somebody has an accident from driving alcohol, if they are under the limit, not over the limit, I'm talking about if you've had 1 drink and you are still under the limit and you have an accident, the government doesn't come along and say, oh, you drank some alcohol and you had a crash, even though you're under the limit, we've now banned you for the rest of your life from drinking alcohol. If you want to drink alcohol, then you're banned from driving for the rest of your life. But that's what the government will do, because they will regulate it out of your hands. Now, which organizations are calling for the regulation of marijuana? It's the big corporate brands. Now, which organizations called for the regulation of the casino industry? The big corporate brands. These huge corporate brands, the names that you know very, very well. An ordinary organization. Its name means ordinary. This ordinary organization that's out there, that's saying that they want to have marijuana legalized and regulated, what do you think that means? Are you that naive? Do you honestly think that it's not going to be regulated out of your hands? Of course it is, and that's why they're doing it, because it's going to be regulated into their hands. They're going to make it so expensive that you will not be able to get a cultivator's license to be able to cultivate for other people. They're going to make it so expensive you will not be able to get a distribution license to distribute to other people. Only they will be able to get those permits. You will just be allowed to pay 1,000 or 2,000 rand a year plus your personal cultivation permits, and that's it. That's what it means. And so initially the price won't go up too much, but in the space of approximately 2 years you'll see the price will double. Not only that, but with legal regulation comes VAT, also special income taxes, etc., etc. And that's what's going to push the price up and up and up. So every single year, you'll see the price jump. Initially, it might only go to 110 rand a gram, or a bag. After that, it's going to go up to 150, 200, 250, 300, and it will just keep going up and up and up as the government thinks of more ways to tax your plant. What about re-legalization? Well, re-legalization means that there's no control with the government. It means that everybody can enter into the industry. It means that those people who supply the best products at the best prices will be the ones who succeed. In a true capitalistic society, prices must always decrease. Prices must always go down. So you're looking at, I would say, probably within about a space of a year, the price would go from 100 rand to about 70 rand. 2 years later, it would have come down even further. You might be paying 65 or 50 rand. I'm talking about for the best quality buds, 50 rand a gram, or 50 rand for what you are currently paying. It also means that the lowest quality marijuana will no longer be sold. You won't be able to get low quality because only the best of the best will be getting sold. If you can buy from me for 50 rand and I'm selling a great product and the guy next door to me is selling total junk, why would you buy his? Of course you're not going to. So it means that the price comes down, the quality goes up. And you could be paying, as I said, 50 rand a gram, 50 rand a bag. But if you want it to be legalized, you're going to be paying 200, 250, 300. And if it's decriminalized, it's 300 rand a gram straight. So the choice is yours. And you need to realize that the cost of marijuana will only come down if it is re-legalized. Because otherwise the government is going to keep on taxing and taxing and taxing and taxing and taxing all the money into their back pockets. You name me one politician in the South African government who has actually stood up and said that they support the full re-legalization of marijuana. Not one of them. Yet somebody in government will be given the department. Somebody in government will be given the control. Somebody in government will be given the authority to tax it. Someone who's never supported marijuana will be given the authority to tax you. Do you understand what that means? Someone who's totally opposed to you growing it will be given the authority. How was marijuana made illegal in the first place? It was taxed and regulated. In America, we know that they made a marijuana tax stamp, and no one was allowed to be given the stamps. In South Africa, they regulated it. They said no one is allowed to smoke marijuana above ground. You're only allowed to smoke the marijuana at the mines. And that was to get all the black people into the mines. Once you allow the government to tax and regulate marijuana, they will definitely, as God is my witness, they will, I guarantee, tax it and regulate it out of your hands. And that's why the only people who support taxation and regulation are those big branded organizations who stand to gain from having it taxed and regulated out of your hands into their hands and their mates in the government. That's what this is all about, and that's the way that the price of marijuana will change, and that's why you have to stand for the re-legalization of marijuana. You cannot stand for the legalization, which means taxation, government regulation. You cannot stand for that, and you cannot stand for the decriminalization because the cost is too great to you and to everybody else. Mandatory minimum 15 years. Not only do you destroy your life, you destroy everyone's life around you, because now you're going to jail for 15 years because you had 6 grams. You had 1 gram extra. And how do you get 1 gram extra? Well, it's very, very easy. You've got 5 grams of marijuana. The police come and they just dip it in some water, and then they go and weigh it. They weigh your wet marijuana, and they say, sorry, it's 6 grams. It's very, very simple, and it's open to so much abuse, and that's why everybody must stand for the same thing, which is the full re-legalization of marijuana, where there's no government control, no permits, no fees, no taxes, no VAT, no special duties, none of that. It's not a permission thing, it's a human rights thing. And human rights can never be permitted. So don't fall for the trick. Don't pay the 20 rand to get your permit. Refuse. It's a human rights issue. You don't pay for a human right. You don't request a human right from the government. The government must justify why they're taking away your human rights. It's not for you to ask them to give you a human right. You have it automatically. So I hope you understand that the cost for you, if you ask for legalization or if you ask for decriminalization, is going to be extremely expensive. You're not going to be able to afford to grow it. You're not going to be able to afford to buy it. And you're not going to be able to find someone who will sell it to you. And if you can get it, it's going to be low quality junk at high prices.